to Jamaat Islami, because it's also important to remember in the last elections in Bangladesh in 2026, they actually formed an 11-party alliance. I mean, I just want to say, in terms of going through that development, going through that change, I met the Supreme Leader, mashallah, and I think what they've done is try to communicate on TikTok and many of the channels to tell young people our main focus is actually social work. We want to help those, even those who were slain by the previous regime. They actually help the families, and I think it's something commendable, mashallah, to the point that they actually won 77 out of 300 seats. So, of course, it's not a great win, but I think it just showcases you there are pockets of success that we can have to push for, and I just don't want us to easily be swayed by the fact that Islam has come to power. Of course, I understand. I'm also very upset. I remember from my party, I was the only lone voice issuing a denunciation on the coup when Egypt, President Morsi was deposed. I think not many parties at the time in Malaysia actually denounced the coup. We had journalists coming here, basically celebrating. I say whatever it may be, you might be a supporter or not, but no one should ever lend support to a coup. So I think that's the kind of position, but we have to also recognize the extreme and heavy vilification in the media that takes place.
Can I add something, based on the Tunisian experience, what Sister Isaac Noor said? I think a genuine democracy could only function on two pillars, political as well economic. And I think in Tunisia we made a good progress in a post-revolution situation. We succeeded to draft a new constitution, to build, a new institutions in the country, organizing, free and transparent elections, 3 times legislative elections, presidential elections, as well. We succeed to organize local elections in the process of distribution of power. Because historically speaking, Tunisia is very centralized. It's a small country, and everything is centralized in Carthage, the palace, in the hands of the president. And it's not easy, to shatter this long-rooted tradition and legacy of dictatorship and centralization. But economically speaking, we didn't make an excellent progress. This does not mean that the economic situation was catastrophic. We provide the people freedom as well, freedom, dignity, and food. We provide the economy is not excellent, but it's not terrible. But based on what is coming after, in the post-coup data after 2021, the situation is becoming terrible. Complete failure in different fields, and I think the crisis is deeply interconnected, intertwined in Tunisia, political, economic, social, in everything. And even diplomatically speaking, the country is deeply marginalized and isolated, because you have a president, and you can't classify him within the category of populism. As Sister said, populism affected even the old democracy, let alone a nascent democracy. I could call it as anarchism more than populism, because populism normally emerged from a democratic system. In nascent democracy, you have a kind of anarchism in name of political change and revolution and fighting corruption, but everything is becoming, worse and worse. Economically speaking, as well, politically, in terms of institution, is in process. This president dismantles all the achievements that we have built after the revolution. But does this mean that the revolution or the legacy of revolution evaporated in Tunisia? I don't think so. I think the coup d'etat remains at the end of the day coup d'etat. And I think the revolution never died. Even if it will be stagnant for certain years or a decade, even two. And this is we have learned from different waves of revolution, including the French Revolution. If you read the history of the French Revolution after 50 years, for example, you may say it's a complete failure. Yeah. The Bourbon coming back, and yes, and the political despotism, coming back everything in fullness. But after 70 or 80 years, they consolidate, the values and the principles of the French Revolution, whatever our assessment of that experience. So to say this, I can, insist that the Tunisian Revolution is still live in the hearts and the minds of the people. And I think we may be surprised of a new wave of revolution, new political change, like we have seen in 2010, 2011. It will not be a surprise.
Thank you. I think we'll have to allow the gentleman to ask questions and another two questions.